Can you hear me? All right, just getting this stream set up. Apparently there's a longer latency than the last time. I set it on normal latency, and apparently that's a little too long. Hey, Lavelle, good to see you. Okay, so let me get this get this stream posted over on Twitter, and then we will get down to it. I've got some cool stuff to show everyone. So, 1 second here. This is going to be a lot of fun today. And of course, the internet is being a little wonky because I'm streaming, so pardon that. So how's everyone doing today? Having a good time? Awesome. Okay, 1 second, almost post on Twitter, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, that is tweeted. I'm still sorting out this whole streaming thing. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you guys are enjoying me doing videos again. I don't know how much I'm going to be able to do with all the stuff going on. I want to... Yes, plaid shirt. Plaid is a color. Huge thank you, by the way, to everyone who... for the birthday wishes on Wednesday. That was really appreciated. And, you know, means a lot. So, thank you. The beard is magnificent. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. I've decided to go full wizard, so it's going down to here. I don't know how good the streaming quality is today, by the way, so I'm trying streaming through OBS, so we'll see how well that works. So I'm going to be designing some cool stuff today. I have some Alagasia art prints. Hold on, let me pull this up. Some Alagasia art prints like this. This is a colored map of Alagasia. All this is available on my Etsy store. Oh, so I was gonna say I was gonna sign books today, the way I did last Friday, but y'all bought them. We completely sold out of Forkwitch Worm and Eldest, and those have all been signed. Those are all going out. We have more on order. They should be showing up before too long, as well as Brissinger and Inheritance. I am not offering Aragon at the moment, even though I have Aragon, because Barnes & Noble is going to be selling signed copies of Aragon in the stores and also through their website, bnn.com, starting on the 26th of November. So if you'd like a signed copy for the holidays or for friends, family members, yourself, that's the place to get it. Also, we sold out of our hardcover To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. There were a couple that had some damaged covers, so we pulled those, but everything else sold. So thank you. And in case you're interested, we do still have the softcover editions of To Sleep. They're not listed on Etsy right now, but they'll be going live on Monday. Etsy's confusing. We had to pull this along with the hardcover when the hardcover sold out, but we'll have these back up on Monday. So if you want a softcover To Sleep, it's available. As I think I mentioned last time, it does have 2 new pieces of art in it, so if you're looking for a cool collector's item, this is the one. Also, this happens every once in a while. It's pretty rare, but we got a copy of Eldest, and check this out. So it doesn't have the gold print, the gold title. And what happens, and actually I don't think it'll show up on the stream, but you can see the imprint of the letters on the cover. So the cover got stamped, but they missed the gold foil for some reason. And it happens rarely, but it does happen. So, and in fact, you can see on the spine, it doesn't even have the lettering there. So I think what we'll do is we'll put this up on Etsy as like a single listing, and you can keep your eyes out for that. And if someone wants a collector's item, a misprinted copy, you know, it'll be there if someone's interested. And of course it'll be signed, since you really can't stop me from signing stuff. So as I mentioned, you know, Wednesday was my birthday, and I have to show you the absolute best birthday present. I had some amazing ones, but this was from my wife. And I'm sure, since most of you are fantasy fans, you will appreciate this. Here it goes. That is the map from Skyrim. Of course, that's the Brissinger symbol, which matches my Brissinger pin. And this is a notebook. This is made by a guy off Etsy, somewhere in Eastern Europe. I don't know the shop name. I'll maybe try to post that. This is metal, and these things, it doesn't show up well on camera, but this is actually gilt-edged paper. Let's see, this pops open, and it is a giant notebook for filling with many, many cool inheritance-related things. I was testing out my fountain pen in the back of the book, and the paper is very nice. I like to write with so this is my favorite, this is my favorite fountain pen. This is a black Lamy Safari, and I have a italic, I don't know how well it'll show up, I have an italic stub nib on it, which makes for really nice lettering, and I use Noodler's Slippery Eel black ink in it. So let me snap this, and I like that this doesn't have those sort of metal clasps that you have to turn. Those always get in the way for me, and they make it impossible to just open it up quickly. These you can just flip out just like that. So yeah, if I ever build a house someday, I'm going to build a house that looks like this book. It'd be a giant dragon house. So this thing weighs like 10 pounds because there's metal in here. If I were flying or traveling, I can only imagine taking this through security. So it's a book I could kill someone with. You know, hit them over the head with it. Okay, so just had to show that off and brag a little because I'm a notebook nerd, and I'm sure many of you are also. All right, so I'm going to sign some of these prints, and I will answer questions, and we're going to have a good time, and I'm going to chat away. Let's see, I've been in OBS at the moment. I am going to pop back over to YouTube. And please keep in mind that there's a decent amount of delay this time. I did a larger than expected delay on the stream, which I won't do in the future, but if I'm slow to answer any particular questions, that's why. And there I am signing away. So, all right, let's pick a question to answer. Let's see. Someone says, Lee Wolf, you love to sleep in a sea of stars. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Someone says, I know that Elva passed out when Galbatorix died, but did she also experience all the suffering that Galbatorix did before he died? Yes, she did. Although it didn't cause her the same pain in some ways because she had a different opinion of it. Like, the things that Galbatorix experienced that caused him to kill himself caused him immense psychological suffering, and Elva experienced a share of that, but because she's not the one who committed the crimes that Galbatorix was experiencing anguish, the crimes themselves didn't anguish Elva. It was just Galbatorix's feelings. So, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Elva has some sympathy for Galbatorix's state of mind because of that. Okay, let's see. So many questions. Someone's asked if I can sign that eldest book where the name would have been on the cover. You know what? I certainly can. I don't know how well Sharpie will stick to the cover, but if you buy it when it's listed, and if you request that, I'll be sure to do that. But I won't do it unless someone requests. Is there going to be a second book for To Sleep? Well, that's an interesting question. The Fractalverse is big, and there's going to be a lot more in it. I was actually just talking with my agent today about the new Fractalverse book, which is going to be coming out next year. It's quite a bit shorter than my other novels. It's longer than Forkwitch Worm. I mean, it's longer than the first Harry Potter book. It's about 78,000 words long, and it is a full novel. It's one story, but it's definitely a different, kind of a change of pace than my giant doorstoppers. But it is a prequel for To Sleep. So if you haven't read To Sleep and you want to get into the Fractalverse, it's a nice, easy way to sort of get a sense of, what it's like. As for like sequels to Sleep, we did release the interactive story Unity, which is available on fractalverse.net, free and clear. You can read that / play that and enjoy it. And I have every intention of writing more in the world, in the universe of the Fractalverse. But first I have to finish the current book I'm writing, which I'm over halfway through, and it has dragons in it. So, you can judge that as you will. Let's see. Vikash Chaitram, apologies if I'm butchering your name. Thank you for unwittingly inspiring me to become a writer. Well, thank you. I wish you all the best with that moving forward. The world needs more good writers. And the reason I say that is because good writing means good thinking, clear thinking. And whether that's applied to fiction or nonfiction, the world could use more good writing. What do I think of the manga Berserk? I haven't read it. Sorry. I'm aware of it, but I haven't read it. Oh, Casey, I'm glad you got the map for your husband. Glad he enjoyed it. I had a lot of fun with it. Actually, the new book I'm working on is going to have 4 new maps in it, which I'm really excited. And I actually want to go and finish up a drawing I started of Mount Arngor, which is the mountain where the Dragon Rider Academy is, where Aragon settled with the elves and everyone in Forkwitch Worm. Let's see, did Galbatorix use a spell that caused a nuclear explosion when he killed himself? Yes, actually. He basically caused a fission reaction. Not fusion, fission. Sorry, my cat seems to want to come join me, so she may be hopping on my lap here. This is Kiara the cat. Thoughts on the Wheel of Time show? Oprah Gold Plays says, is To Sleep in a Sea of Stars an adult book? Yes, it is. But it's only really adult. I mean, it's adult in the sense that every time in the Inheritance Cycle, when I said Aragon swore or Murtagh swore, I don't really censor myself into Sleep in a Sea of Stars, but I don't think the book is gratuitous in any sense. As for The Wheel of Time, I'm very much looking forward to seeing how that adaptation works, and hopefully it's successful. I think we can all think of some unsuccessful adaptations. And yeah, I'm very curious to see how they tackle such a large story, so many characters, and of course the world itself. It used to be that something like Wheel of Time, Lord of the Rings, Aragon could never have been done in television. I mean, I remember reading reports of George Lucas trying to get a Star Wars series, a live-action Star Wars series made in television years and years ago. I mean, I forget exactly what. Hold on. Kiara, you want to come say hi to everyone? Nope, she's flopping on the floor. But even George Lucas, I was going to say George R.R. Lucas. That would be funny. Even George Lucas couldn't get a Star Wars television show made because it was just too expensive with the special effects. Now, though, with the Unreal Engine, those giant LED sets they're using for like The Mandalorian, you can actually do it. So I want to see how they do it with Wheel of Time. I'm looking forward to seeing how Percy Jackson turns out. And yeah, I mean, it's possible to do something like Aragon in television now, which is kind of amazing to me. I think Game of Thrones really broke grounds on that. Why isn't my cat named Solumbum? No, here's the thing. I don't really like to look at my own work. I don't like to read my own books. I don't like to look at my own drawings, at least not for recreation. So same thing with naming Kiara Solumbum or Kira. Camila is asking what the Manoa tree took from Aragon. Well, book 5, of course. Book 5. All right, let's see. What is my favorite TV show? Asks Thrawn. Hold on. See how efficient I've been? I've got a whole bunch of these. My favorite television show, I'm a big fan of Star Trek, of course, original series, and Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. I love Babylon 5. I think, though, if I had to pick one television show out of all of them, it would be the original Prisoner television show, The Prisoner, which aired on British television back in, I want to say, the late 60s, early 70s. I think it was incredibly forward-looking and talks about a lot of the issues we deal with nowadays in regard with privacy, surveillance, Facebook and Meta, the metaverse, all of that. So if I were to recommend you watch anything, it would be The Prisoner television show, and not the reboot with Ian McKellen. You have to watch the original one. In fact, there's a line in Eldest where I think it's the Razaks say, "We want information," when they're at Carva Hall, and that was a tribute to The Prisoner. Also, when I forget who it is in the Inheritance Cycle says, "Be seeing you." This is the internet. We will gladly accept cats on streams. Well, yes, I'm sure if she comes within snaring distance, I will grab her. But she's being a cat and standing away and just watching me. I think what's bothering her, the cat, is that she wants to jump on the table and have all these art prints on it. So she is being wary. By the way, for those who just joined, you can see this is what I'm signing, these color maps of Alagasia, and they're really, really gorgeous. And I have to actually give a lot of credit to my assistant, Emanuela, because she did the coloring, although I didn't make it easy for her being partially colorblind because I kept telling her to tweak stuff. And Sting says, "Did you ever watch Lost?" Yes, I did, and there are parts of Lost that are direct tributes to The Prisoner. Here's an interesting question. Hamza says, "I'm currently working on a fantasy world that I one day hope will be a series." Awesome. "I've spent about 7 years world building, but have worked up a lot of anxiety about actually writing it. Please help." Oh, man. The only solution to that is to actually write it. You have to nail down the story and write that sucker. And spending any longer on the world building would probably be a mistake, assuming you have all the big pieces in place. And that's it. All these are signed. Ready for some lucky person. Hold on. I'm going to pick what I'm signing next, so give me a second here. I think I'm going to sign something from the Fractalverse next, actually. Let's see. I have a couple of options here. So I really like these. These are color prints of the sort of fractal universe art that's both within the book and in the hardcovers is printed on the end papers. And these just turned out absolutely beautifully, absolutely beautifully. So I'm going to sign some of those. Let me get back to YouTube. There we go. Great question. Someone's asking here, in Forkwitch Worm, I use the term weirding to refer to, sorry, I have to use a paint pen for this, that I use the term weirding for magic, which is a little bit of a different way to talk about magic. Yeah, I did that specifically for the Urgles, because I wanted a different way to talk about magic that made sense for their race and culture versus, all the other races and cultures. Because the elves will call magic gramarye, which ties into the ancient language and the whole concept of language and words of power being powerful. And I think Urgals have a different view of magic. It's partly tied into their religious beliefs, and it's also partly tied into their belief that magic is kind of the coward's way of fighting. You know, it steals, not steals, it's not using your brawn, it's not using your body, even if it is still using your might. So they don't really hold magicians or magic in as high a regard as, let's say, an elf would. Good question, by the way. Sorry, I have to be a little careful with these paint pens because they go everywhere. Let's see, Robert here is asking, you're finishing your first book, but what now? Contact agents. Well, man, that is a good question. Well, I think the first step is you should probably read your book or find some people to read it for you so you can figure out what's wrong with it and fix it. It's possible you've written the book really, really cleanly, in which case, good for you. It certainly does happen. But more likely, there are things that you can clarify, things you can cut, things you can speed up, improve pacing, all of that. So I'd say find someone in your life, whether it's a professional editor that you can contract with or a good reader, a couple of people who can read the book, give you some feedback. Don't take everyone's word as sort of rule of, word of God, because people have different opinions. They really do. And what works for one person may not work for another. I've experienced that with my editing feedback, so something to keep in mind. After that, yeah, you start submitting to agents, you start, doing your research, figuring out which agents represent what sort of fiction, and then you cross your fingers and see where it goes from there. You can always self-publish also, but that's a whole nother kettle of fish. Nick 33 says, how are you doing today, Chris? I am actually doing extraordinarily well. There has been some amazing behind-the-scenes news here that I can't tell you, but I'm feeling good. Ask me after next week, who knows how I'll be feeling, but right now I'm feeling good. By the way, so this is what hold on. Let me go back so OBS so I can see what I'm holding up. So this is what I'm going to sign next. These are some Saphira's Eye prints, which we've had for a while. And, well, we've been offering them for sale for a while, but I'm just signing this batch. Oh, and I want to show you something. I'm not signing this today, but 1 second. I have too many books sitting on my side table here. So I don't know if you've seen this, but we have this. Also, I'm not signing any of these today, but these are drawings of Brahms' Ring that I did for the deluxe edition of Eldest. And this has always been one of my favorite drawings because this was the drawing where it's like I leveled up. It's like I finally understood how to use light and shadow and just make it work. And I'm aware I cheated a little bit, like that shadow should have some reflection in it, but I did that on purpose to make it a little stronger graphically. And that is the symbol on Brahms' ring cut into that sapphire there. And believe it or not, I didn't have any photo reference for this. This was just straight up pencil right out of my imagination. So yeah, this one means a lot to me. And if you're interested, there are prints available. Going back to YouTube here. But yeah, I'm doing really well. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. I hope to be able to talk about some of it very soon, but all I'm going to say is the giant tweet storm that everyone participated in actually made a difference. So thank you. Let's see. This is a good question, and this is a bit spoilery for those who haven't read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, which if you haven't read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, what are you doing? Go read it. Sorry, my pen now is getting stuck. There we go. So the question is, there's some similarities with the ending with the main character of Kira and a little bit of what happens with Aragon in the inheritance cycle, and was that intended or not? I actually was very aware of the potential similarity, and I had a long conversation with my editor about that, and my editor said, and I thought this was the best possible advice she could have given, which was you wrote the ending that made sense for the characters of To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, so don't change it just to change it. And so I didn't. That said, the new book that I've already turned in has a completely different ending. Different type of ending, I should say, as will the one I'm currently working on. So I think I've been desperate for these books to come out, actually, so that I can show people some of the variety of ideas I've been playing around and things I want to write, and hopefully things that you want to read. Let's see. Can I sell a Brahms ring on my Etsy store? I would love to. I've wanted to do that for ages. I actually have a replica myself, and it's amazing. It's solid gold. It has the symbol cut into, it's like a giant signet ring. Like I said, I'd love to do that. Unfortunately, the rights regarding merchandise are a little dicey for me because 20th Century Fox acquired all of the traditional merch rights when they bought Aragon to make it as a film. But there are some there's some areas of wiggle room, which is why we're able to, for example, sell art prints and various other things. So we do what we can. It may be possible to do a Brahms ring. I would love to do that, and I think that all of you would probably enjoy that also. So one of these days. Let's see. Someone asks, what's it like being a new father? Sleep deprived, but it's about the most amazing thing in life. It gives you a reason to get up in the morning and push hard and be a better version of yourself, and hopefully try to teach this new person all about the world and how to be a good person themselves. So I really enjoy it. I would have happily had a family 10 years ago if I could have, but yeah, and it helps, of course, that I don't have to, being a little bit further along in life, I don't have a lot of the pressures in my life that people do when they're 20. So that would be really hard, having a kid at 20 and, not knowing how to put food on the table necessarily and being all stressed about everything. That would be really, really hard. So I'm glad I'm in a place in my life where that's not the case. And I have a really good support system with my wife and my extended family, and yeah, it's been a really, really wonderful, positive thing in all of our lives. How hard was it to figure out the distance and travel times in Aragon? A heck of a lot easier than for To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. I actually still have my old notes from Aragon where I was listing, when they go from Gilead to Trondheim, saying, okay, they're going to ride so many miles per day, and there's so many days, and they're going to run for this much. And I definitely pushed to sort of realistic limits of what a person can do and what a horse can do, but it is within those limits. It's just assuming that everyone's very fit, that Aragon's a dragon rider and thus has physical resources most of us don't, and so forth. Red Dragon says, do I plan to create a Patreon or something like that? No. Nothing against those who do, but no, I'm not going to be creating a Patreon. Everyone who's read my books has been very generous in buying my books, or at least a large number of people have been generous in buying my books. So I don't need a Patreon. What I might do someday is like a Kickstarter if there's an appropriate project for that, and need to raise funding for a game or a special edition of one of the books, just like Sanderson's done. But no Patreon. Is fail nerve harmful like alcohol? Yeah, if you drink enough of it. Everything's harmful if you drink enough of it. And I'm sure the elves would tell you that a sip or two will suffice, and not to not to overdo it. What happened to Aragon's belt? Book 5. Will we ever learn about what happened to Aragon 1? Yes. Yes, you will. Luca, you got a frame note. You have a note for me. Oh, thank you. Well, I'm glad you liked that. Did I get to read Brandon Mull's new book? I have it, but I haven't had time to read it. So that's the problem, is just getting reading time. Will we ever learn about the yellow-eyed man in El Harim? Possibly. Possibly. What is my favorite character or thing or place that I've written about? Well, I mean, the first answer to that, of course, is Saphira. She's the reason I got into writing. From To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, probably Grigorovich. He was just a blast to write. I got to let all of my internal madness out. How far is a league? A league is 3 miles. A league is 3 miles. How terrifying would an Urgal rider be? Pretty darn terrifying. But of course, the Urgal rider would probably be frustrated, especially if they were a cull, that they were unable to ride their dragon until the dragon was fairly mature. Am I a fan of Brandon Sanderson? I am. I haven't read a whole lot recently. The last big book of his I read was Way of Kings, and I never got through Words of Radiance just because of work and life. So, one day at a time. Have I ever played the Aragon movie tie-in game? Yeah, at least the Xbox one. There was also one for the Nintendo DS, and there was another one also. But yeah, I played the Aragon Xbox video game. I beat it in one sitting, got all the achievements, and it was just so strange to be playing a CG computer version of an actor playing a character I created when 15, 16, who's running around shouting things like, Brissinger! So, would I suggest epic fantasy fans read older epic heroic poetry works like the Iliad or Beowulf, or is it not necessary to develop modern novel writing craft? No, you really should read the classics. They're the hold on, I'll get into that for a second. In a second, I just want to show off what I'm going to sign now. We have some black and white classic prints of the map, so I'm going to sign those up for you. To answer your question, it is incredibly important to be aware of the classics because they have influenced so much of our modern culture and so much of the stuff that we enjoy. And if you have knowledge of the classics, A, you're going to keep from repeating things, but B, it gives you... Sorry. Apparently, YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Sorry about that, folks. I don't know what could be chewing it up. Hopefully that clears up. But yeah, you have to understand the classics in order to write new stuff. And it gives... And one of the reasons that's so important is because the classics have endured many times because they satisfy readers' expectations in ways that has persisted through thousands of years, often thousands of years. So, you know, you will help your own writing by learning what has worked for thousands of years. That's one reason why I actually like Bollywood films. I think that the Indian culture that exists now is perhaps a little closer to their traditional stories than we are here in the West, and it reflects that. That's reflected in their movies, especially when they do big epic stories, and it feels big and epic and satisfying in a way that not a whole lot of Western films do these days. Now, it's not actually Bollywood, it's Tollywood, it's Tamil, I think. But if you want to see the most epic films ever made, watch Bahubali 1 and 2. It's got kind of a really cringy love song in the first part of the first movie, but if you can get past that, it is bonkers and awesome. If you've ever seen the GIF on the internet from a Bollywood film of those crazy guys flying through the air and the shields, they're getting thrown over a castle wall, and they pull together with shields until they're like one unit and then land behind the castle walls. That's from Bahubali, and that's not the craziest stuff in that film either. So that is a great example of knowing your classics, letting it help guide your story structure, and then creating something new from it. Let's see. What's a good question here? Advice for drawing really well. You know, look up some YouTube channels on how to draw really well. There's great content out there. The main thing is you just have to draw. You have to learn your anatomy. You have to learn your perspective. And like with anything, practice makes perfect. Let's see, do Eldenari have any other uses? Well, I mean, being the home for a dragon's consciousness is a pretty good use. They are kind of like giant batteries, but... oh, someone asks, what are some of the artists I have in mind with regard to my recent tweet? So I tweeted yesterday asking for recommendations for artists who you would like to see do art in Alagasia, and that's because I have a project coming up where I'm going to need a bunch of art set in Alagasia, and people have tweeted some wonderful recommendations, so thank you, very helpful. Who would win in a fight between Kira with a soft blade versus Galbatorix? Ooh, that's a good question. I think if Kira is fully leveled up, like the end of To Sleep, then she's got a decent chance, but magic is hard to beat, so usually magic is the right answer. Someone here is asking, do you think it is the better to make people read your story chapter by chapter while writing it, or to make people read it once the book is totally finished? Personally, I prefer to write the first draft and then have folks actually read the book. So everyone's free to do what they want, though, and sometimes having folks read the book as you're writing it makes sense. Now, I don't know how well this is going to show up because I think the stream is a little jittery, but here's what I'm signing now. These are some art prints from the Fractalverse, from To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. This is actually a alternate drawing I did of Orsted Station, and then my assistant colorized it because I'm not great with color, but I really love how this turns out. If you actually see this in person, it just glows, and I don't know if I can maybe get it to show up a little better. But yeah, so signing these. If you want them, they are there. Let's see. No, I've not played Metroid. I have listened to all of the Inheritance Cycle project, which is music by Malta Wegman. It's really cool stuff. Feels like Alagasia to me. Someone's asking if Arin was the name of all rings like Brahms or just Brahms ring. No, it was the name of just Brahms ring. The elves do not like to reuse names. So, one second, there we go. That's a beautiful signature now. Beautiful signature. There we go. If one of you gets this print, you'll notice I went over the signature twice, so that gives it a little character. Someone says, a human person says you finished book 5 recently as well and cannot wait for book 6. Awesome. Glad to hear. You finished book 5. I assume you mean Forkwitch Worm. Well, if you finish that, go read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. And then you can get awesome art prints like this. Let's see. Does Elva's power help her understand what you are, one second, what you are afraid of? Like, let's say, if she appears before you and you're afraid she will discover your Wi-Fi password, would she know what a computer is? Yeah, actually, her ability does help her learn things and discover things, because it's essentially a form of telepathy in some ways. That's how she knows that you're not only that you're scared, but what you're scared of. So it's definitely an OP ability. Okay. Have I thought about writing side stories about the light spirits, the golden lilies, or the flying boat Arya made? Yeah, actually, I nearly titled the Tales from Alagasia book The Grass Ship. And my idea was to actually have the grass ship tie together all the stories. And it kind of does that, but I might do a sequence just with the grass ship. But I do want to do a bunch of side stories. How am I doing during the pandemic? Great question. Probably better than most because I work from home and I grew up homeschooled, so I'm used to basically staying inside and not inside, but staying home and not seeing anyone and just writing and working. That's a luxury a lot of people don't have, I know, but personally for me, it hasn't been a whole lot of difference, hasn't been very different from what I normally do. So I'm going to sign some of these now. These are some art prints of the SLV Wallfish. The Wallfish is one of the main spaceships from To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. And this will, and I can't say his last name, it's on my website. He's a concept artist for Hollywood, and he's worked on stuff like, I'm trying to get this to not reflect from all the lights. He's worked on Star Wars, Black Panther, I mean, all sorts of crazy stuff. And I really love the design he came up with. So the reason the ship is shaped like this, I'll tell you this is sort of like behind the scenes info. The reason the ship is shaped like this is because this part here at the front, that big donut sort of thing, originally rotated to create gravity, because this ship was originally a fusion drive. I always get those confused. It was a fusion drive, which meant that it didn't have enough power, delta V, to be thrusting at 1G all the time. So when it wasn't thrusting at 1G, they rotated this section, and the outer part of the ring became the floor, and everyone's heads pointed in toward the center of the ship. Eventually, this old ship was upgraded to a fusion drive, a very powerful fusion drive, which allows it to thrust around at one gravity, not indefinitely, but it certainly within interplanet. As a result, this whole section no longer rotates, and everyone's feet points towards the back of the ship when it's under thrust. And then all of these big things out here, all these things here, those aren't solar panels. Those are radiators, because one of the biggest problems in space is heat. Trying to get rid of heat. You don't have air to pull the heat away from your body or from the spaceship. So that's actually why, like a thermos jug uses a vacuum as an insulator. Same thing in space. The only way you can radiate heat is through black body radiation, infrared radiation. So it's slow and it's difficult, and that actually causes some interesting things for space combat, because if you fire a laser a bunch of times, you create waste heat. If you fire missiles, you create waste heat. But you don't want to keep your radiators sticking out all the time during a battle, because, they might get shot off and then you're really in trouble. So all of these things went into the design. This is propellant, not fuel, propellant, and cargo would be in here also. So a lot of thought went into this, and they did a great job in designing it. Well, I designed it, they drew it. And that's what I'm going to sign now. Let's see, questions here. Into the Wild or neither of those. Instead, the answer is Mad Max Fury Road. So there. I think I'm going to sign these with a black Sharpie. I think the silver one looks nice. I think the black Sharpie will look a little better. Things to think about. Do in real life ships suffer heat issues? Yes, they do. Do I like The Legend of Zelda? I've never played it. Have I ever read into Ender's Universe? Yes, I've read Ender's Game and Speaker for the Dead and Xeno. I forget the name of that one, but yeah, I read all of those. When Inheritance was first published, did I receive any hate for not putting Aragon and Arya together? Oh, you bet. When Inheritance came out, boy, was there some squealing, but I still say I made the right decision. And Aragon is going to live a very long life. So we'll leave it at that. Whatever Wright Brahms' point of view. Yes, I actually would love to write a whole book about Brahms' life, starting from when he was a kid, getting pulled into the Dragon Riders, and then, his experience with Morzan and Galbatorix and losing his own dragon. I mean, all of it. I think it'd be a heck of a story. And I've pretty much signed everything I wanted to sign tonight. I'll answer a couple of questions here, and then we'll wrap this up. Let's see, I've been streaming for... I'm not sure how long I've been streaming for. About 40 minutes. That's pretty good. Drip says, oh, people are outraged that I've never played Legend of Zelda. I know. I never had a Nintendo system growing up. Folks are saying I really did my research on the science of... for To Sleep in a Sea of Stars. You have no idea. And I really tried not to dump it on readers in the book, but there is so much science underpinning it stuff. Even the stuff that seems like, completely unrealistic, there's science behind it. Even like the crazy stuff that Kira's suit is able to do. In fact, there's one point in the book when I think it's the entropists do something and Kira asks them how they do it and they just say magic. There were a couple of readers who actually took that seriously, like, oh, Christopher's got magic in his sci-fi story. It's like, no, they were being sarcastic. They're not using magic. It's just very, very advanced technology. In fact, one of the things I really enjoyed, or a saying that I enjoy, and I forget who originally said it, so I'm going to mess up the attribution, but it was something about how, as you may have heard this, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And I think that was Arthur C. Clarke who said that. But then there's a corollary, which is something about if it's really advanced enough, it's indistinguishable from a force of nature, like the fundamental laws of physics sort of thing, which is really cool. Someone's asking if you can, I guess, signed copy of Domia Aber Weirda, please. Well, you can't have it, but I think this notebook is about the closest I'm going to get to Domia Aber Weirda. What did I think of Dune? I haven't seen the new one yet. I do want to see it, though. I'm going to fairly soon. This is a good question. I've been writing for so long. How did my writing change from my first book, since you started so young and had so many books in the middle? I mean, my writing has changed a lot. If you read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars or even Forkwitch Worm, it's really pretty different from Aragon. I still love my purple prose on occasion, but I think my writing's a lot cleaner. I think the pacing's better, at least line by line. How much did Garrow realize about his sister Selena? Garrow knew she was with Morzan and disapproved mightily. He just never said anything. Wow, so many comments. You guys are awesome. Someone says, I really respect your work ethic when it comes to writing. Thank you. I'm trying. Is it harder to write fantasy or sci-fi books? It depends on how much research you want to do. Like, if you're not worried about being scientifically realistic, then sci-fi is no harder to write than fantasy because you're just making it all up. If you're trying to be realistic, it's tough. I'd say sci-fi is a little tougher, but if you want to be realistic with fantasy, then you're also going to want to do research into, how to saddle a horse, how to sail a ship, sociology, culture, all of that. Who is my dream Aragon casting? I think Aragon would need to be an unknown because whether you're doing a television show or a film series, you would need someone in that role for a number too old. And by too old, I would say 18 to 20 even. By the time you get to the last movie or the last season, they're just going to be too old. You need as young of a kid as possible who can act. And that'll also make the relationship with Arya a little bit more understandable, that it doesn't happen if you see how young Aragon is. Because the thing is like when you're 15, when you're 16, you feel like you're grown up. You're ready to take on the world, and you don't realize how young you are until you look back years later. I mean, when I meet people who are 15, 16, and I say this with all due respect, one second, with all due respect, because I remember being 15 and 16, when I look at them and I think, you're so young. But I take them seriously because I remember wanting to be taken seriously at 15, 16, and I remember doing things that warranted being taken seriously at 15 and 16. But it's just a strange time in life because it's like you want to be an adult, or a lot of people do. You want to go forth into the world and have adventures and have responsibilities, and yet so much of the world is holding you back and saying you're not ready for it, you're not ready for it. And of course, historically, that was never the case. If you were 16 or 17, you were probably working an adult job or profession or being trained in one. And nowadays, we have this tradition of keeping people in school until if you go to college, mid-20s, and if you get like a master's or a PhD up until like 30, right? That is a huge chunk of your life, and it's a large chunk of your life when you're most energetic, you're most full of potential. And I think it's really a pity that more people aren't able to pursue the things they actually want to do instead of just learning to behave in the system and chasing a piece of paper. Sorry, I'm ranting a little bit here. Where are the dragon eggs kept in Domia Aberwirda? In a very safe place. Was there anyone Galbatorix truly respected? I think he respected Vrail, leader of the Riders, but I think he also hated him too. I think he respected Islanzadi, at least by reputation. But, yeah. Favorite Stephen King book? Probably The Drawing of the Three. Oh, no. It's Wizard in Glass. Wizard in Glass. Absolutely love that one. I've not read Wings of Fire. I've seen the books, but I have not read it. Yes, an American Daniel Radcliffe at the age he was during the filming of Order of the Phoenix. That's about right for Aragon, but I kind of want a kid who maybe grew up on a farm, has some self-sufficiency, because Aragon's out hunting by himself, so you need someone who can take care of himself and isn't, just chasing Instagram fame. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Which book will have 4 maps? The one I'm writing currently, which has dragons in it. Who would win, Aragon Book 3 or Brom in his prime? If it's Aragon Book 3, Brom would win. If it's Aragon Book 4, Aragon would win. Yes, I'm very far behind in the new comments. How do you pronounce Roran? I think I just answered that question. Roran. Was the Hatterack Desert a nod to Dune? It's a big desert. That's about all the nod I could say it is. So many good questions here. Thoughts on Wheel of Time series? I'm really looking forward to seeing how the adaptation works, because that could be relevant to my own case. Okay, this is an interesting question. I have to answer this. Jansen is asking, in To Sleep in a Sea of Stars, how does turning off the thrust stop the gravity? The ship would still be moving. Yes, but if you're moving without acceleration, you don't feel any sense of force acting on you. As an example, the space station that currently orbits the Earth is moving. It's flying around the Earth. But if you're inside of it, moving with the space station, and neither you nor the space station is changing acceleration, everything seems to be motionless. So you just float. It takes acceleration for you to feel a force on your body. So if you fire up those engines, the ship will be pushing against your feet, and thus you feel gravity. And if you turn off the engines, you feel no gravity. Unless, of course, you're spinning something to create gravity, but that's separate. My favorite book from the Inheritance Cycle is Aragon and Inheritance. David, glad you're enjoying this Q&A. It usually doesn't, Chase is asking, it doesn't usually take long for a dragon egg to hatch after the right person touches it. It's usually pretty fast. It was just longer with Saphira because she was wary of Galbatorix and all of that. Hello from Italy. Awesome. Was there a setting into Sleep you wish to explore more of? Lots. That's why it's called the Fractalverse, and that's why there are going to be more stories in it. Let's see. What would win, a Rider's Sword or a Valerian Steel Sword? How do you say that? I haven't actually watched the show, so I don't know. The Game of Thrones sword. Definitely a Rider's Sword. More magic. Yes, Cryodrake, that's right. In the Fractalverse, if you want to slow down, you slow down, flip, and then fire your engine to slow down. You need to go read To Sleep. Trust me, if you like the Inheritance Cycle, I think you'll enjoy To Sleep. So go get it. Go read it. More Oramus, quite possibly. Quite possibly. Yeah, I do know Naomi Novik's series. I haven't read them, but I've read some other books by her and been very impressed. And I really like Naomi as a person. So one of these days. Can Tinkle Death cut bright steel? You know, that's a good question. We should test that. I've not read Red Rising. I have a signed copy, pre-release signed copy by Pierce, and he's an awesome guy, but I've yet to read it. That's how far behind I am with my reading. More Brahm, yes, eventually, I hope. All right, folks, I think I'm starting to circle around with the same questions. I definitely want to do this again in the future. Like I said, we will be having more books showing up in the Etsy store as soon as as soon as shipping allows. So I'll do more signings once that's possible, and I will sign more art prints as needed. But I'm not going to commit to doing another stream next Friday just because there's so much going on behind the scenes that I can't guarantee I'll be able to do this. Someone's asking about the number 7 in the afterword of to sleep. Yeah, there's a page on fractalverse.net that uses the word 7 if you can find it. If nothing else, the internet can help you. So, yeah. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thanks for the awesome comments. They are, as always, appreciated. Also, thanks for, reading the books and picking up the merch and all of that. I'm writing as fast as I can so that you guys have more to read, and you have a guaranteed book next year, which I'm pretty happy about. And hopefully it won't be too long after that you get another book. So working away. Thanks a lot for everyone watching. If I'm going to stream next Friday, I will tweet about it sometime in the week so that you have some heads up. Otherwise, I will just... if I don't say anything, it's not happening. And you can just know that I'm busy writing and working on that amazing book, hopefully amazing book that you guys are going to have soon. God, I want to talk about it. There's so many things I want to talk about. Okay. I'm going to wrap this up. Thanks, everyone. Go forth, be awesome, and I'll be back soon.